all derivatives of that's what we get.
Welcome to another episode of Stop Self-Sabotage. I'm your host, Ria Wang, and with my co-host, Wei Hong. Also, today we have the special guest, Mary Xiao. How Wei Hong and Mary Xiao here. And
Yay.
today's topic, my start tumbling. Are you are you are you stuck in cycle of self-sabotage because you're afraid of changes? And how you find yourself constant to think about the decision that would improve your life or that decision you couldn't make is always there holding you back.
Mhm.
So today we dive into that fear of the change. Is your comfort zone that sabotage you? How do we break the fear of move forward? So welcome Wei Hong, welcome Marshall. Today's sabotager is how to break free of the fear of the change.
Yeah. No, fear is a big topic. I know, and I think Maricel too, when we work with our clients and we work with, kind of the core negative emotions, fear is one of those core negative emotions, right? There's anger, there's sadness, there's fear, there's hurt, there's guilt, but fear is right smack dab in that middle right there. And I think a lot of it is because it's left over. I mean, a lot of it is some old stuff from back when we had to survive, in the wild, right? From saber-toothed tigers and things that would eat us at night or even during the day, right?
Mm.
And so a lot of that has some old and new fears that we put in, but yeah, it's absolutely a self-sabotage thing, and I think at the core of it is it's our attempt to stay safe, right? To
Also,
survive.
I think because our brain is wired for something, for safe, for familiar. So when that fear come change, have
Right.
unknown lay in front of us. So that's sometimes the fear tag in. What about if that change is failed? What about that change is make this worse? So that
Right.
fear is in the brain, start panic.
Yeah. But first, I want to hear from Maricel's perspective in terms of what you do, the world that you work and support people and human beings in, and how fear shows up in that world. But since this is the first time on this podcast per se, let's do a quick little intro, Maricel. What is it Maricel Roca does?
Thank you so much, Boy, and thank you, Ria, for having me. Well, I'm a health coach with a background in biochemistry and biotech. So I'm passionate about cutting
Oh,
edge science and technology and how can we, my world is about prevention. How can we improve our lifestyle, improve our lives taking advantage of AI, taking advantage of science and technology. So my contribution to the world, or my highest passion, I could say, is to bring awareness to people, everybody, in the how much power we have to extend health span,
yeah.
which is the time we are alive in, optimal health. So that's what I do. That's how I help my clients with. And I had the honor, the privilege to become a positive intelligence coach. And
Hmm.
that is what allowed me, and now I share that with my clients, the
Hmm.
ability to bring like a flashlight and actually understand the blind spots that we have, uh,
Hmm.
all the kingdom of fears inside our mindset, and explore, understand, and take self-command so that those programming from your childhood or society or other people, you start seeing that, oh, those things are not mine, and I have the choice to let those things run my life or not. So I basically help my clients to develop something called self-command,
Uh-huh.
where they acknowledge their fears, but then they have the right tools to stop with the self-sabotage.
I, that's such an interesting transition, and I love that you go from biotech to becoming a health coach. And I'm sure there was some fear doing that transition, right? I'm sure like going from something that everybody recognized, like, oh yeah, biotech, that's fantastic. I'm gonna be a health coach. It's like, what? I mean, how did that transition happen? I'm so fascinated about that, how you decided to go from biotech into health coaching because sometimes biotech and health don't always go hand in hand, right? Big pharma or any of that stuff.
Yeah, thanks for asking me. That's quite interesting because my quest was to kind of understand cancer. So, like, let's see, 20 years ago, I was working with a group of scientists, Italian scientists in Philadelphia, and we were doing specifically implanting tumor cells in mice, in animals, and trying and testing different back then genetic approaches to kind of reverse the progression of the tumors. But back then I'm like, we cannot implant and represent a whole human being in just a few cells in an animal model, right? There has to be something that will tell us about their emotions, their spirituality, their connection with their body, and
Mhm.
those things that back then were kind of invisible. Or back then I was like, okay, this is right, but science is not there yet.
Yeah.
So I have two choices. If I keep riding the horse of conventional science, it's not going to happen in my lifetime. That's me 20 years ago, right?
Mhm.
Compared to, let's find holistic solutions. Let's see what
Mhm.
can I learn about exploring emotions. How can emotions affect our progression of tumors, in my case back then? But bottom line, I decided to step away from academia and start my own quest for
Mhm.
solutions, for understanding. And I'm so happy I did that because my journey took me through different experiences. But now I can finally merge and bring my scientific background and biotech into understanding aging.
Mm.
Finally, we have molecular tools that measures how fast people are aging.
Mm.
How old is your biological age compared to your chronological age?
Mhm.
And now that
Mhm.
we have AI, what could be even better than that? We're using
Right.
algorithms and machine learning and databases and AI is finally merging. So what I thought 20 years ago, oh, this is not going to come in my lifetime.
Right.
Now it's
I
happening.
wanted to say, Marichelle, I know you for many years now. Probably we know each other like 3 years now, So go through a lot of changes of the life. So I know you shift, move from the different countries and to the American. I think we three all are like that. The
Yeah.
integrate from different country to this. That is a big change. Then career change, and go through this journey. Today, I want to ask you one thing. So, what is the changing that was feel so comfortable from your comfort zone, then changing to something? Oh, I'm not sure. It's maybe that is fear. I'm not sure this really helped me. So can you share a little bit of that? And also, I want to ask Wei also, because we all go through the big change. Another way, I have a big change coming because move to Bali, that is my change is a huge decision. So all of this change we want to bring to today's episode is how each change to come with that fear and to move forward, break free from the
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah, was there any fear, Marisol, doing that transition from something traditional and globally understood as a viable career going into something more holistic? Were there any fears that kicked up when you were doing that transition?
I'm sure there was, but I learned from studying microbiology, the bacteria that change survive.
Mm.
I
Mm.
love
Wait, wait,
that.
wait,
I
wait.
love
Okay, say
that.
that again. Say that again. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. The bacteria that change survive. Meaning, when we expose, and that applies to cells and
Uh-huh.
organisms in general.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
we would, let's say, I remember in Brazil, it's funny because I work in a lab in Brazil, and in Brazil, everything grows. Brazil is like you see plants coming out of the wall. You,
Yeah.
you go to,
Yeah.
have you ever been in Brazil?
Everything's
It's
an
like,
air wall, right?
yeah, so we were trying to induce apoptosis in cells, which is programmed cell death, right? We were trying to
Hmm.
kill cells, and they
Hmm.
wouldn't they would they wouldn't die.
They kept adapting, they kept changing.
Exactly. They kept changing, they
Mm,
switching on and off certain genes and evolving so that their daughters, the next line of cells would retain their ability to cope with, stressors like
yeah,
UV lights or food deprivation and things like that.
right.
So I
I
learned
love
that
that.
from
Yeah.
the beginning, right? You have to
Yeah.
change. You want to survive.
Well, nature tells us, right? If you don't change, you will go extinct. And I just saw a whole video about how white mold that they use to age cheese is going extinct because they've cloned it so much that it stopped evolving. And
Mhm.
it is slowly dying out. And so now the whole cheese industry is getting worried because that's a big part of how they can make cheese is with that white mold. So it's healthy, Well, so humans can eat it without dying, right? Because there's like not good mold that you can eat, and that's not good.
Right, right, right.
I
Yeah.
really like I really like what you said, Marshall. The change thrive. That's if you don't change, you maybe die. But then come back to the daily life. Then some people feel so comfortable with the solution, with the place, or with the things there. Then they are doesn't want to change, but that also holding them back. They want to live the life with more little bit more joy example than stuck in the unhealthy relationship. So right, stuck in the work, I hate it, but it doesn't want to change that. In that like a perspective, how do you move forward? If you feel comfortable, then how do you can change to something better?
Yeah, being comfortable is not healthy. I would
Yeah.
say for your
I
growth.
think a better word, complacency, right? Being complacent. Because there's comfort to be found in discomfort and everything, right? But complacency, right? That part that I think that's an even better way to describe it. Like we're settling, right?
And
Like
you have
play
to,
safe.
I would say, just be aware how to use these things. Like, let's say you are in a toxic relationship, and then your fear is not allowing you to get out and find someone, that will fit your needs or will celebrate your whatever, right? So you're
Mhm.
trapped in your relationship because you are afraid of the
Mm,
unknown, afraid of uncertainty, afraid
mhm.
of judgment. What would other people say? Will I lose all my friends if I get divorced? Things like
Right.
that are
Yeah.
real. Those fears are there, right? So
Hmm.
what I would say is, get inside those invisible um, conversations that you have in
Hmm.
your mind and
Hmm.
actually, work to discover if they really come from what we call imposter intelligence, from your sage, or if they come from your saboteurs, including your
Mm.
judge, right?
Hmm.
Like that voice that judges all the time. You're not good enough. You're not gonna find a better partner. What
Hmm.
people, that constant negative self-talk is
Hmm.
there. But the good news is that it's just a part of us.
Hmm.
It doesn't define who we are.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that we have to believe on those words. We
Hmm.
have the ability to, self-command, stop with that negative self-talk
Hmm.
and cultivate through our sage, the part of our brain that brings positive emotions,
Yeah.
the other part, and basically discern if that relationship is the best for us or not.
Sure.
Discernment.
Yeah, discernment is really important because all of us have been nurtured in one way or another. Sometimes we've been nurtured to our nature, sometimes we're nurtured away from our nature, right? And whatever we bought into, it's kind of like if you subscribe to a magazine you don't really want, now you're stuck with it for a while, but you just have to remember to unsubscribe, right? And I think a lot of us are afraid to unsubscribe because we've grown comfortable, right? Or complacent, or like, yeah, I think comfortable is also relative too, because relevant too, because we get too comfortable with a sabotaging behavior pattern, self-sabotaging behavior pattern based on fear, right? The justification, of course, is because we've survived this long. It's okay. We'll just keep doing that. At least we understand it, right? And I think that's what it is that unknown. We understand the fear. We understand what we've been used to living with. So instead of going to something we don't understand, that's the fear, right? And we say, well, at least I understand this pain. I can deal with it.
I
Yeah.
think for the how to identify that comfortable room is needed to change or it's continue going with that. Is if you find that you're comfortable, but also you also find that you continue complaining. Or if this changing a little bit will be better. If that changing a little bit is bad, you continue complaining something, but still there, so didn't change. That I think is time to break that comfortable
Hmm.
room to find out the way how to change it instead of complaining.
Yeah. I had a client that had that exact same situation. And what she was doing was when we presented something that was unknown, right? She was afraid of not having something to complain. Well, we kind of, through conversation, realized that if she has nothing to complain about, where does she have value? And so she was afraid of not having value because she wasn't sure if she would have anything to complain about if she changed her situation. Isn't that crazy? It's like that unconscious distortion of how we justify staying stuck.
Yeah, those are
You know?
limiting beliefs, we don't see that. That's why you need a coach because it's a mirror that will show you exactly what you can't see. These things
Yeah.
we're talking here are in our unconscious mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
come back to the center of we keep talking about self-doubt. So then the people, if you see, constantly to want to improve the value that they because doesn't have that confidence inside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You want to use something to identify to prove I have that value. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
case. Probably is showing in your clients there right way.
Yeah. Yeah. So Marisa, I'm curious, what do you do with your clients that are, I mean, now that we get a better, I have a better understanding of your understanding of nature and science and how that pertains to people and reconnecting people into the same way nature survives and thrives in this world, right? How is it that what are the things that you do to help your clients navigate fear, whatever, fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of making my life better, fear of getting into a better relationship or whatever that may, and breaking through those what you call the limiting beliefs, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you do to help them kind of put the wheels in motion for that to happen?
So let me tell you my experience, a little story of how I grew up in my professional career as a coach into implementing this now that we call mental fitness. Back in 2018, I started helping people lose weight.
Mm,
And I had a protocol and I had a step-by-step guide, and it was very successful. And friends and people and family, including myself, did the program. Everybody lost the weight. But guess what? After 3 months, 4, 6 months,
it's
eventually,
all
almost all of them gained it back, right?
gain it all back.
So I was like, oh no, all the sacrifice and everything.
Or you can look at it as job security for you. They come back to you and do it again.
Yeah, right. But to me, it was like, no, I need to find something that will bulletproof. It will actually
Mm.
protect them from going back, right? Because I want them to be successful. I want to find something that will prevent that to happen. Because I learned that, the yo-yo dieting, the stress you cause in your metabolism,
No,
it's
it's
even better to just stay the same
yeah,
than going through those fluctuations
it's brutal.
emotionally
Yeah.
and physiologically. It creates a lot of stress, right? We don't
Yeah.
want that. So that's why I came up with mental fitness. It takes only 2 months to learn the fundamental. Ria and I are both mental fitness coaches,
Oh,
and
cool.
um, it takes, it's a great investment of your time because you're learning the tools that will help you avoid self-sabotaging whatever you're
Hmm.
working on,
Hmm.
relationship or health. In my case, most of my clients come, um, thinking about improving their health. But I had clients who just did the mental fitness program with me who were thinking about getting divorced and ended up, staying together, or
Mm,
other people improving relationship with their kids.
right. Because it's all connected.
Exactly,
It's your
exactly.
entire ecosystem that needs to be optimized. And that's what we're all about on my end, in the human ops. It's like you have to like, optimize your entire ecosystem if you want sustainable long-term results, right? And that's fascinating. That's so cool because what hopefully they saw that you've identified that part of the causation for their health challenges stems from their relationships or their relationship with their kid. Well, a lot of it just comes down to relationships with other people in their lives, right?
Our relationship with food, you would be surprised. We all have our, unique relationship with food. And
Right.
when they start, I mean, what makes me different from just information that you can find, you just go ChatGPT and teach me how
Yeah.
to, what's the difference? The difference is that first, when they come to me, I train their mindset. So
Mm.
all the fears around, oh, if I do your program, I'm gonna be super hungry. I will food deprive myself. I don't like that feeling. All of those things, or the fear of saying, oh, if I lose the weight and I become attractive, then I don't know, maybe, all the
Yeah.
fears.
I
All
think,
the stories.
Marshall, you talk about that kind of like in the past few episodes, we and I, we will talk about fear about the success. Like
It's
you just said, oh,
true.
if I'm lose
Yeah.
weight, I become too attractive.
I mean,
It's
it's
right.
true.
It's
It happens. I'm talking
Yeah.
about it.
fear of the success that
Yeah.
is stopped this. So many things we mind, as we know we are in the positive intelligence, how to training our mind, because our mind also, because the way how we growing up in the childhood, that's the things we develop to help us to thrive. As we
Hmm.
become adults, that thrive is not necessary anymore, but we create the pattern. Then how to break that pattern? Then to do the practice of mental health, that I think is really important.
Yeah.
And now I remember that we talk about why if I'm too success, I will be don't have time with the family, with my kids. Remember that we will talk about that one.
Yeah. Hmm. No, and I think that's a it's a distortion of reality, right? Is to ju it's kind of like Aesop's fable. Remember the fox and the grapes, and he couldn't get the grapes, so he changed his perspective. It's like, well, the grapes are probably sour anyway.
Mhm.
So, and so I think in our lives, depending our circumstances growing up, we've learned to cultivate a choice of perception that will minimize the pain of not getting what we want. Right. And I think when we start to get used to doing that, it starts to show up as an unconscious pattern in everything else that we do, including our health and everything like that. So, remember when we talked about this, Ria, it was like the fear of success, and everybody stops there. A lot of people in the personal development industry, the gurus, and it's like fear of success. It's like, it's not exactly the fear of success. It's fear of what happens when you achieve success. And that's the distortion that we want to kind of remedy, right? It's not success
Mhm.
itself is defined as great. Yeah, I'm a multimillionaire, but the perception is if you believe that being a multimillionaire means people will hate you, you will lose your friends,
Yeah.
and your life will be crap. Biggie Small, more money, more problems. Okay, yeah, that's totally true. If you start to buy into that story, it will distort and sabotage your journey towards keeping and staying successful in health and relationship and in everything else in your life, right?
Yes, yes. Today, I just this morning before our podcast, I was with a client. We talk about the self-sabotage. One thing is take control because one of her sabotage is control. The many things is because they have justification of the lies is that without I'm control, this will be corrupt. Without my control, this wouldn't success. So that
Mm-hmm.
control reason so much anxiety with the things have to go that way. Then start the frustration that really affect his life. Even he just share how to impact his life with his relationship with the boyfriend
Mm-hmm.
because boyfriend said you are too much control. Can you just be a little bit softer? He feel less more masculine instead of have enough
Right.
feminine because the fear he feel if lose that control, he will
Mm-hmm.
be not be success.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that sabotage is so stronger. So we go through the PQ culture, then come down with his brain, with his thoughts, then connect more emotions. That
Right.
shift, bring more peace with the mind.
Yeah.
Have an aha moment that, oh, that I need to just let go.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much distortion. I mean, yesterday in our team meeting, I re-quote because I love this quote from Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain. He was quoted saying, I have had thousands of problems in my life, most of which were never true." And I think a lot of us want to squash some of those negative thoughts or those problems that we perceive. And we forget that I think, Marcel, you kind of alluded to that, which is we have to pay attention to what we're saying, to understand first and foremost, how did we learn to say that to ourselves so that we can get to that root, right? So we can embrace that part of it because ultimately, like Ria was saying, we're just trying to survive. We're just trying to protect ourselves. That inner child is the one that's saying those things, and if we say, go sit in the corner, go sit in the corner too much, then the inner child is just going to shut up, but then throw a tantrum later.
Mm,
Right.
yes, and also the control. I think we was go through with the coaching session is a lot of time the control is sometimes it's come from growing too fast. That I have
Mm.
very resonate with that because
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
talk about so many the background is especially the aging like we said we are always growing so fast as we
Uh-huh.
were little keep growing. I think that's too fast made us want create so much fear and want to take control with that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those things I've observed, but I've always wanted, like growing up, I always felt I was going too slow. That's my problem, right? It's like too slow, too slow. Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. But it's like death of a thousand paper cuts, right? If you bring a paper too fast, it'll cut you, right? So sometimes if you're going too fast, right, then it'll be that. So I think it's that. I think what we call it's called a harmonious home state of homeostasis, right? It's like and you know this, Marty. So like cells, when there's a homeostasis, is there's a continuous flow back and forth between the membranes, right?
Yeah.
And I think human beings, when we grow and evolve, there is value in finding homeostasis so that the dust can settle a little bit, and then we can grow again, and then dust is settled a little bit, right? Because growth isn't linear; it's kind of like that.
Exactly, exactly. And yeah, I was, as you were saying, Ria, that thing, I have three teenagers at home, and I can see directly how changes affect the way they behave. They don't like it,
Mm,
right? And they want to have control. They, by the time they got used to the changes in their body, then something else, and then another new triggering thing happening. So it's like super. That's why it's called adolescence, right? Because they're suffering, they're struggling
mm,
to adapt to too many changes at once.
mm,
Right? So
mhm,
physiologically, emotionally, and I understand that, and that helps me to cultivate empathy towards them. But coming to our point of facing too many changes, when
mhm,
we see the outcome, they're gonna mature, they're gonna be transformed into adults that will conquer the world, right? So the
mhm,
outcome is positive. It's
mhm,
worth it to go through so many changes because at the end, they're gonna be flowers in this garden,
mhm,
this planet Earth,
mhm,
right? And
mhm,
for us, when we think it that way, it's like, okay, I'm going through, I don't know, let's say financial struggle or health issues. I know I'm facing changes. I know it's hard, but guess what? This is all preparing me.
mhm,
All of these challenges are preparing me to become a better version of myself.
mm. Do
That
you
is
think,
beautiful.
Maricel? Yeah, that was well said. Because do you think, Maricel, for those that are listening to this, I also have teenagers, right? Is it important to create almost like because they're changing and growing so fast as parents, would you say a great way to support them is to give them landing pads? So it's almost like imposed pause so they can appreciate those subtle changes that are happening all the time, even though they're already off to the next change, but to help them kind of like pause and appreciate what has shifted along the way. Do you think that's helpful as
Yeah.
parents to help teenagers with that?
I think it's essential to create
Mm.
space for them to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they can fly out of the nest, but then they can look back and say, okay, if whatever, I can come back. If, give them
Mm-hmm.
the safety that they need so that they feel confident to fly out and try new
Right.
things. But there's a very thin line. If you give
Mm.
them everything and you make them
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable every time they find a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
you are actually mutilating their ability to develop self-esteem and self-growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's the first part of the movie, Ray, he's blind, he's a little boy, and the mom is in the kitchen witnessing. She's like, okay, I'm leaving you, goodbye. And then she leaves her precious son, who is blind, in the kitchen, having to be, able to adapt to the circumstance and be on his own. And she's there and she's looking and she's crying. And that scene, stuck with me and breaks my heart. But at the same time, it's a teaching moment for
Right.
parents because your instinct is like, I'm going to do everything for them. I'm going to,
Mm-hmm.
avoid them to suffer what I suffer so they are more successful.
Right. Right.
And that algorithm in your mind is actually sabotaging what is
Mm-hmm.
the best, most precious attribute that you want
Yeah.
them to bring once they're out of your nest, right? Which is
Sure.
their self worth, self esteem.
Yeah, it's like a controlled environment, but yeah, you're right. There's a fine line where you don't want to go over to enabling entitlement, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of like my mom when I was little. I was tiny, and I was playing with a paper clip, and I wanted to put it into a socket, electric socket. She didn't stop me. She just hovered over me, apparently, and just watched me do it. And as soon as it went in, she made sure that I let go. And I went, woof. And then she asked me, do you want to do that again? I'm like, no. And I learned very early the power of electricity.
That's how we learned from the fair. Sometimes we talk about the first time we put the hands on the fire, so you burned. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
you growing up, you will be never put your hands on the on the fire anymore, right? Yeah, I was.
No, I'm still a stove toucher. I will metaphorically stove touch everything in my life. If someone tells me don't do that, but they're telling me out of theory, I'm gonna go do it so I can tell you out of fact. Yeah. Like even like, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I've experienced that firsthand and almost got thrown off the horse.
Well, I wanted to say, wait, is that also do you think is also is feminine and a man and a woman is different? Most time we say
Mhm.
the boys, if you tell them don't do anything, the boy must be to do it. So
Uh,
if you don't want they do something, maybe you will be tell them, hey, you can do this, you should do it. Then instead say you cannot do that. Then they will be
oh,
probably not doing
I,
that
I don't I
anymore.
don't think it's a boy and girl thing because I've had a lot of female clients that were frustrating stove touchers. I said, look, I've experienced it myself. You're paying me, so I'm giving you a heads up. Don't go there. And they go there anyway, just so they can say, oh, you're right way.
So come back to our self-sabotage about fear of the change. So we have the changing sense. So how do we identify, give some, how to call that, give some very valuable tip, but easy is a small step to follow
Mhm.
through. We know our life after we're born and we die, the whole life journey is change. Especially, I want to say this year is year of the snake. We know it's transformation, it's change. As all you know, I'm changing my life. This point, move to Bali for 1 year. Then beginning when have that idea come out, I was have fear. Oh my gosh, how about my family? How about my boyfriend? Do I broke up with him? Or do I, if he's not agree, do I keep moving or I keep stay with that? So how to shift that fear than to have very grounded conversation. When you
Mhm.
change, you have a conversation with the people who's around you is part of your responsibility. Then you
Mhm.
still can able to change, to shift. So what is your big, not a big or small, is a small step to
Mhm.
give the audience who's listening here.
Yeah. I have one.
I thought you have 10. Just start
I
with
have I
one.
have 100. No, but if you're talking about a small step, just
Yes.
because it's small doesn't mean it can have a huge impact, right?
Hmm.
I think one of the hardest things to do for most people is first and foremost to acknowledge the fear, to own the fear that you actually say out loud, yes, I'm afraid that fill in the blank. Because I think that's what keeps us stuck sometimes is that we're in denial, right? And remember, Dr. Carl Lasko in his book Emotional BS or Bullshit, he talks about um, the three musketeers of disempowerment, if you will, denial, delusion, and blame,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Right. So none of the three can exist without the other two. So if you're in denial, then you're deluding yourself of some reality and you're blaming, right? Some external force. If you're in delusion, then you're denying yourself of some truth and you're basically blaming some external factor that you can't control. If you're in blame mode, then yeah, you're in denial and you're delusion about something,
I
right?
wanted to say that's one way is that is you can see people start blaming this, blaming situation, blaming other people. That is you can really clear to see that need a self developer. So how much is the work to do, then start look about itself instead of brand everything
Yeah,
is
I think
outside.
any of those things, whether it be your denial, delusion, blame, fear, anything like that, I think one of the most powerful first steps and the simplest first step is to really announce to yourself and take full ownership that you are experiencing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And be as clear as possible about what specifically that you're afraid of. Because there is power for taking ownership. Because when you take ownership, what you're doing is bringing all the power back to you so that you can make the change. You don't have to rely on anything external factor to make the change for you. You're bringing the power back just by announcing and taking ownership that, okay, I'm afraid, yeah, and I'm afraid of this. Only then can we truly start to address what's causing that fear.
Well,
But
I would
until,
like to add something,
yeah,
wait. I totally agree with that, but it would be one of those yes and.
hmm
I found myself thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about the metabolism of fear here.
hmm
And I think that unless you involve your body, the sensation of
hmm
whatever fear is hunting you through
hmm
your physical body, is not going to be completely metabolized or resolved.
Yep.
And so I will add, the awareness that you just talk about, plus the mindfulness or any connection to any sensation in your body. That's the right
100%. Yeah.
formula.
Yeah, that's
100% because yeah.
what I wanted to summarize is just shift your perspective. Think about the change. It's not loss, it's the growth. And also think about the discomfortable that as the part of transition. When you be more observe how you discomfortable with that. I want to share a little bit of story is when I was doing that 5 days challenge. It's a lot of work and a lot of things. After that, I feel, oh, my body is so tired. I feel so discomfortable. But quickly, as years, working on that, I know that's the transition. Because I take time to look at that transition, observe that, so I have the aha moment of transition, then decide, then to moving. So think about it when you're in the discomfortable place, that is something give you change to ready to transform.
Mhm. Yeah. And this goes back into aligning all the entire ecosystem of what it means to be human, right? Yeah, there used to be a period of time in person where mind and body were like addressed separately, right? And then now it has evolved to back to like, no, and one can't be with it's all one thing, right? And absolutely 100% agree with you, Maricel, 100% agree with you, Ria. It's like when we take ownership, then we can shift into reframing that perspective, right? So that has to be a second step after that. Because a lot of people will take ownership and they just leave it there. And it
Mhm.
just sits in their body, right? And so I've actually seen that happen. I have kind of clients that say, yeah, I'm afraid of this and I feel it right here. Okay. Did you just stop? You got to do something next. There's a next step, right? And what Ria's talking about is that next step, which is like, okay, there's so many like a beautiful diamond. There's multiple facets of the one rock, right? And by taking multiple facets and looking at it, and so think of whatever challenge we're dealing with, whether it be fear or anything like that, as this raw, uncut diamond. And every time we take ownership of it and putting it in a hand, and then like Rio was saying, we take a different perspective. And what we're literally doing is we're creating more facets to that same thing and ultimately transform and transmute, right? That's what this exists in the physical world. The transmutation of our fear into a beautiful diamond of change and growth and opportunity, evolution. That's essentially what this trifecta we just talked about, right? Own your fear, find it in your body, and then transmute it through changing your perspective and cutting those multiple facets, making a beautiful diamond instead of just a raw, ugly piece of rock.
I
Yes.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Also, I want to share with one thing is to remember you don't have to do this alone. You can
Yeah.
surround yourself with the growth mindset people, surround yourself with the people who's uplifting you. And also, like Marichelle said, here is a coach. Here is the people who's knowing how to take each step. So you don't have to take a long way, then feel lonely and feel alone, then fear about the change, then stuck there to holding you back.
Yeah. And if it's not in your economic budget to immediately jump into a one-on-one support type of dynamic, there's communities out there. Heck, you can even make comments below this video and engage with the podcasts and the social media posts that resonate with you, right? I think a lot of people don't realize there's just so many people out there who are wanting to support and help as many people as possible, but it requires you to show up. If you don't show up and actually be present and engage, then it's just as bad as, hiring a coach and not doing anything the coach tells you to, right? So it really is up to the individual, up to you to kind of like be willing to just show up. My coach used to tell me all the time, it's like, well, you just need to show up in the world. Just go out there because I was always hiding, right? It says, well, how do you expect to grow your business if nobody knows who you are? And it's like, well, I don't know what to do. It's just go out into the world. And so I did. I would go networking, I go speak and everything like that. And next thing you know, it's like, I have a thriving business. She goes, see, but you have to show up, right? And I think in this case, for those who are dealing and struggling with self-sabotage and fear, you're not showing up to help someone else right at this moment. You're showing up for you,
Mm.
right? And look at just the three of us right here, and we're just a representation of so many other people out there who are just willing to help and just wanting to help. We've made it our purpose in life to go away from biotech, go away from engineering and creating widgets, go away from just running a spa into truly serving human beings. That's just three of us. And we're just a fraction of how many other people out there who are willing to do that too, right?
Yes, there is so many source, so many the people you can find the place to help. The start number one is start aware and to looking how to help you. And even just we help you listen this up show here with self-sabotage, with Wei, with Marisha, with me. So we shared so many tips. So just take one of these many tips, one small step, start with there. That I think will be start shift.
Yeah. And if you
So
have any questions or you're confused about anything that we said, just comment below. You say, hey, Maricel, you said something like this. I don't know.
Mm.
It's like, wait, you said something and it's weird. And it's like, okay.
so I like to say today, I think a three sentence, each one we have shared is really powerful. I like to summarize it that the first one, I think Marichelle said is changing is thrive, right?
Right.
That's super powerful. I also love we talk about, oh, getting your power. That is your own power. Choose your power. Did I
Mhm.
said that right way? So that
Yeah.
is your power of the change. Then
Yeah.
for me, I want to share about is shift your mindset. Think about fear is not the loss, is that grow. So then don't let that fear holding you back. Just do
Hmm.
it. Don't focus what is the results, what is the unknown. Focus in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. What you're saying right there is perfect, Ria. It's like it's just literally transmute the meaning of the energy